Hello, and welcome back to more Films Under Constant Critique, where we take a look at films, some good, some bad, and some downright awful. I'm Bongo Baikov, joined by our host, Maverick Drenzaria. This week, we're taking a look at the film The Dark Knight Rises, the final in the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy.
For a second, I thought you were going to say The Dark Knight Returns. but, um, apparently, it premiered in New York City on July 16th, 2012, and then was released 4 days later, July 20th, 2012. So, a bit of a gap between this and The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
4 years.
Yeah.
Which partly might have been just they weren't sure what to do next because Ledger died, and
yeah.
I read Nolan wasn't sure he wanted to do another one. Like, he was worried it wouldn't be good enough,
It is a pretty big thing to have to make a follow-up to The Dark Knight.
Oh, you know what this means? This means this is the second time that one director has done an entire trilogy of superhero movies.
I'm guessing the first time was Sam Raimi?
Correct, yeah, Sam Raimi. The Spider-Man movies. Because Sam Raimi did not do Darkman 2 or 3. Just the first Darkman movie. And most of the cast came back. Most of the principal cast members, Christian Bale, obviously.
Well, the cast members who lived in the story.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Because Aaron Eckhart's not. He obviously wasn't going to come back, or Maggie Gyllenhaal. Yeah, Christian Bale, of course, back as Bruce Wayne / Batman. Michael Caine as Alfred.
Gary Oldman as James. Gordon. I didn't know his first name was James.
Commissioner Gordon, yep. He's commissioner for a full movie now.
Yay!
And Morgan Freeman is back, which is interesting because didn't he resigned in the the previous movie.
We'll get into that a little bit more later, but there's a couple of interesting choices this movie makes.
And you also have some new additions to the cast.
We have Anne Hathaway as Selina Kyle, or Catwoman.
Yeah, which was an interesting choice for them to go with. And Tom Hardy as Bane. And whatever his real name is. Does he have a real name?
I think he's just called Bane.
Like, it's not like John Bane? Or Citizen Bane? I don't know. Marion Cotillard, she plays
Miranda Tate.
And Joseph Gordon-Levitt, he plays a young cop named Blake.
Yeah, John Blake.
As well as Ben Mendelsohn, who played Krennic in Rogue One.
When I have my notes just sitting beside me, and one of the first things I have written down is Ben Mendelsohn with a question mark after it. I don't know why, I just didn't expect to see him in this movie.
Yeah. Krennic is in Dark Knight Rises. And Matthew Modine, which is funny he's in this because he played Private Joker in Full Metal Jacket.
Oh, really?
Yep. And he basically plays the Dwayne Robinson role from Die Hard in this movie. Just the cop that's always saying dumb stuff and doesn't trust the hero.
Yeah.
You also get cameos from Cillian Murphy.
You're returning as Scarecrow.
Or / Jonathan Crane?
Yeah, Jonathan Crane.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was Stephen Crane wrote Red Badge of Courage or something. That's a completely different person. And, which, you know what that means? That means he's the only villain to appear in all 3 movies. In very limited roles in the second and third movies, but he's in them. As well as a cameo from Liam Neeson.
This marks the second time that Force Ghost Qui-Gon Jinn has appeared to someone in a trilogy.
Qui-Gon Jinn. Oh, man. And most importantly, it features cameos from members of the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is also the longest film of the trilogy.
I was on it.
being the longest movie we've done on this podcast so far.
I was honestly surprised with just how long this movie was.
It is 2 hours and 44 minutes, so it beat out Superman Returns by 10 minutes. Congratulations, Christopher Nolan. And we can get into our initial thoughts on the movie.
Yeah.
Now,
I want to hear what yours are first.
You hadn't seen it before?
Yes, this was my first time watching.
You hadn't seen it before? I'd seen it once. And I actually saw it under funny circumstances. I saw it at Seth's house, actually. I saw it at a friend's house because he'd rented it from like Family Video, so I watched it there. Didn't watch it under as good of circumstances as that this time. I was just watching it on my computer. And I'll admit that might have affected my enjoyment of this one a little bit, because the other two I watched on a TV. Like a nice flat screen TV. I don't like it as much as the first two. But I think it's a good movie, but it's a flawed one.
I think in general I would definitely agree with that.
I think it did a good job closing the trilogy, though.
Yeah.
Overall.
Yeah. I got, a fair bit of enjoyment out of it, but one of the things is, just kind of as I was watching this movie, for the first hour of it, I was like, this pacing is just so quick. We just keep moving from one point to another point to another point, and then right at about the hour and 10-minute mark, it just stops moving. It just hits a brick wall and it crawls, and that was super weird.
It's definitely affected in this one just because he's introducing so many new characters.
Yeah.
In this one, which...
And I actually liked how fast-paced the first part of it was. Because an hour had passed and I didn't even notice that I had spent an hour watching a movie. And then, oh my god, my cat is attacking me. Get off, please. Yeah, like the first hour moves along like pretty well, and like it gets into this groove, and then you hit that hour and 10-minute mark, and it's like, okay, I'm sitting here watching another like hour and a half of movie, and this is just crawling.
It was trying to do so much. That's the thing. It was like maybe a little too ambitious, for its own good in some ways.
Yeah, I will say tone-wise, this is actually a very interesting movie.
It is, yeah.
Because I actually feel like it's closer in tone to Batman Begins than it is to The Dark Knight.
Yeah, kind of. It did have callbacks to Batman Begins. I think part of that was because Nolan wanted to avoid referencing the Joker in this one.
Yeah.
Out of respect for Heath Ledger. So this one ties a lot more into the first movie.
Yeah, I was about to say it almost feels like a second sequel to Batman Begins and not a sequel to The Dark Knight.
It does, yeah. That's actually a good way to put it. And I think that was a good move in some way. It wasn't trying to top The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
It was just trying to bring the story to a logical conclusion, which I can respect. Yeah, okay, we can start getting to the plot if you want.
The movie opens on, like, a eulogy scene of Harvey Dent, like at his funeral. We get basically a sentence from Commissioner Gordon saying that, he was a great man, we need to follow in his footsteps. And then we immediately move on to the next scene.
Yep.
We've probably spent more time just now talking about the scene than how long the scene actually goes on.
Come to think of it, yeah, there were a lot of scenes like this at the beginning. They were just over very quick. Because then you see some guys driving a truck with prisoners who have bags over their heads to a plane. And apparently one of the guys is Bane.
And the reveal for Bane is honestly kind of funny. So there's these 3 prisoners that they have on the plane. They're asking them, who do you work for? He shoots one guy, throws him out the plane, and then starts moving on to the next guy. And then the third guy finally speaks up. And we get to hear Bane's wonderful, wonderful voice in this movie.
This is something I know you've criticized a lot in these.
And
Even
the thing
before we
is,
did this podcast, you criticized Bane's voice.
it's grown on me a little bit. I still think it's a stupid voice. And so he's like, perhaps he is wondering why you would shoot the man before throwing him out of the plane.
But I'll be honest, like, it's a very unusual voice that
It's
he chose,
very
but
memorable, for better or for worse.
it's really grown on me, there are a few parts where it does come across as a little goofy, though.
Yeah.
But
it's usually
like
whenever he has to speak.
It's a very memorable voice, and
Yeah.
look, compare this to the Batman and Robin Bane.
Fair. Very, very fair.
What was he said? Bomb!
The thing is, I was expecting more like, again, going back to the Batman animated series, I was expecting, more of that kind of Bane when I first learned that they were going to have Bane in a movie, where it's like a huge luchador, essentially.
A wrestler, yeah.
Yeah. And instead we get Tom Hardy wearing a fur coat and like a weird mask.
And one thing we haven't talked about as much on these podcasts is how good the costumes are.
Oh yeah, no, the costume design is great.
Bane's mask looks really good.
It's very intricate and like interesting to look at.
And Batman's costume, obviously. Catwoman's costume, all the costumes, Basically, Bane has this plane get hooked up by another plane so that he can kidnap a nuclear scientist.
Yeah.
And actually, this opening was inspired by the opening action scene from the James Bond movie License to Kill.
Really?
Yep, Christopher Nolan is a huge James Bond fan, apparently. What's interesting is he leaves one of his own guys to die.
He does it so that it looks like it actually crashed and that it wasn't set up.
Then we get a scene of they're at the funeral of Harvey Dent. And there's a guy giving a speech that says Batman killed Dent.
Yeah. Which is following up the plan that he made at the end of The Dark Knight.
He mentioned the Dent Act. Just put tons of criminals into jail. And then we move on. The structure of the beginning of this movie is very weird.
Yeah, it very much is like a collection of scenes to like set up the rest of the movie. The next scene is a party.
Yeah,
that's being held in celebration of Harvey Dent, and we get the shocking.
Because they declared it Harvy Dent Day.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we get a shocking piece of information.
Martin Luther King. To these people.
Then we get the shocking revelation that it's been 8 years since The Dark Knight, which that was a shock to me. I didn't think we'd go that far ahead in time.
Bruce Wayne's like gone into hiding, basically.
Yeah, he's become a recluse.
One guy says that he's holed up and peeing into mason jars, which obviously a reference to Howard Hughes. This is probably the most Howard Hughes that Bruce Wayne becomes in these movies, actually. And this is also the first time you see Selena Kyle.
Yep, she's basically masquerading herself as a maid at the Wayne Manor.
She's like just going around the house, pretending to be cleaning it up, and I think she steals like some jewelry.
Yeah, she's trying to steal the pearl necklace that belonged to Martha.
And I kind of like the scene where Selena meets Bruce Wayne the first time. Because she gets startled because Bruce Wayne is just shooting arrows and almost hits her.
And Bruce Wayne looks a bit disheveled in this scene, too. Like, his facial hair is all grown out. Walking around on a cane.
He basically looks like Christian Bale now.
I was about to say, he's doing his best to dress up like Dr. House.
He kind of does, yeah. That's another British actor pretending to be American.
Be an American.
So, there we go. Yep. So, and yeah, Bruce Wayne, he's basically just become a recluse who hides out in Wayne Manor. Because again, Howard Hughes.
And they don't really give much of a reason why. It basically sounds like him pouting because he doesn't get to be the Batman anymore, so why do anything as Bruce Wayne?
Or maybe he's just really fixated on watching Ice Station Zebra over and over again, like the real Howard Hughes. And then Selena knocks him out and steals the pearls. And then we get a scene of... Jesus. That is kind of how the beginning of this movie flows, though, to be fair. Because then you meet Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who's playing this cop named Blake. And he's talking to Gordon. You know, he wants to know why Batman vanished and who he was. It's, like, hinted at that he knows the Batman and Bruce Wayne are the same person.
It feels like half the main cast just knows that Bruce is Batman in this movie.
Let's see. Lucius Fox does. Michael Caine does.
It's revealed that Bane does.
Bane does. And Blake,
Selena Kyle basically figures it out like the second
so
time they meet. This random cop knows.
Everybody fucking knows. Oh, man.
Which is impressive considering that the Batman hasn't done anything in 8 years. That all these people all of a sudden are like, oh yeah, he's probably the Batman.
They're probably like, oh, Batman disappeared and Bruce Wayne also disappeared. Coincidence? I think not. And you get a scene where Alfred is talking to Bruce. There was one comment. There was like one exchange that I thought was kind of funny. Bruce like says, "You're trying to set me up with a jewel thief," and then Alfred says, "At this point, I'd set you up with a chimpanzee if it could get you out into the real world."
So Bruce starts trying to look for information on the woman that stole his mother's pearls. And I believe at this point he also reveals that she was trying to steal his fingerprints from the safe.
Gordon, he goes down into the tunnel with some other cops. And the henchmen, they bring Gordon to Bane, who is apparently down there in the tunnels, which...
Just chilling out, having a good time.
I was going to ask, has he just been living down there?
I guess he has.
Is he just like the Penguin now or something? Where he's just
here's another thing.
Wait. Here's another... Do you know what this means? This means this is the third time we've had a villain who's been living down in the sewers on this podcast. The Penguin, Batman Returns, Lex Luthor, Superman the movie, and now Bane.
Why is everyone living in the sewer? They don't really explain too much about when Bane really showed up. So it really does feel like he's just been down there a while, just chilling out, waiting.
Yeah, because they never show him, like... He doesn't, like, crash the plane into Gotham or anything, or just...
Yeah.
I guess he just very sneakily arrived, which, like, okay, wait a minute. How does he slip through, like, without being seen when he has that mask on? This doesn't make any sense. I feel like a guy like that would stand out in a crowd.
Yeah.
And then we move on.
So Blake ends up taking Gordon to the hospital, talks to him a little bit, and then decides he's going to go to Wayne Manor and basically confront him about being Batman again.
I feel like Blake ends up taking Gordon's place for a good portion of this movie.
He does.
Because Gordon is in the hospital for most of this movie.
Yeah, Blake's a weird character. Because he's kind of introduced as just being some random cop and then ends up being one of the most important characters in the story.
It's very surprising, yes. And, okay, yeah, Blake, he goes to meet Bruce Wayne because apparently he knows that Bruce is Batman, and he gives this monologue about how he is an orphan who also lost his parents, and he says that he saw Bruce Wayne and just knew, just from the look...
Yeah.
That he also is an orphan. Or he could have just used Wikipedia, I guess.
Or, he could have just known that the most famous people in Gotham were murdered and left behind the most famous son ever.
I guess he's kind of a rookie cop, so maybe he's a little bit new to this place.
It's his first day in Gotham. Even though he grew up in the orphanage.
First take off. He just left the orphanage like a few days before this. Do they have police academies in orphanages or something? And apparently Bruce did not know that the Wayne Foundation stopped giving money to the boys' home, which that's why those orphans are like living in the sewer, is because they aren't getting any funding anymore. So, and I find this really interesting that Bruce Wayne was an orphan, and he gives money to help other orphans as well.
Yeah.
He basically doesn't want them to go what he himself went through, which, as egotistical as Bruce Wayne can come across in these movies sometimes, it is nice that there's like little moments like that show he's not a complete dick.
Yeah.
He actually does care.
Not all of his money is going to building a tank that he can use to flatten the next guy to rob a 7-Eleven.
Or buying hotels just so he can change the rules. And Bruce finally leaves Wayne Manor.
Yep. He basically has a to-do list of things that he has to get through. He has to go talk to Lucius Fox again. He wants to go see Gordon, and then he wants to get his leg looked at.
He also shaved, too.
Oh, yeah. So he found time to do that.
So now he's back to his Patrick Bateman look.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, I have to go return some videotapes. And the doctor recommends not going skiing.
Yeah, because, well, it's revealed that he just has no cartilage left, which means that he must have quite a few really good painkillers on him. Yeah. If he's able to even just exist. Because, ow.
Maybe that's why he's become a recluse.
That's like super arthritis.
He doesn't go out because it hurts so goddamn much. And he also talks to Gordon in the hospital while wearing a ski mask.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, just visit him during visiting hours, I guess.
I mean, it's kind of like the first time he ever talked to Gordon.
Hey, remember this?
And Gordon basically asks that he comes back to being Batman and try to fight Bane.
That was easy. He goes to a charity ball and sees Miss Tate.
Well, before we get there, he gets out of the Lamborghini. He's walking to the ball. Everyone's taking pictures of him. And he pulls out a remote that just basically explodes everybody's cameras.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember that scene?
I don't remember that.
I swear that happened.
Oh, I'll have to go back and look. That's really funny. To be fair, okay, Nick, I was taking notes on this movie on the computer while also watching the movie on the computer, so I might have missed a few things, to be fair. So, but anyway, he's there to go to a charity ball and see Mrs. Tate, and she's trying to do a clean energy project. And basically, I think she's just trying to get Bruce to help fund it.
Yeah.
Or something, yeah. Where I think she says to Bruce, a man who doesn't care about the world doesn't spend half his money on a project to save it and then go into hiding when it fails, which I think that's in reference to that device that he made, if I remember.
Yeah, because they're making some sort of like brand new nuclear reactor.
Yep, which comes into play later.
Yep.
Again, things kind of add up here, you know. Like,
there was a screenwriter on this movie.
There were several screenwriters on this movie. But yeah, Selena Kyle is there, wearing a cat mask. And this scene reminded me a little bit of a scene from Batman Returns, where they're also at a ball dancing, although neither of them are wearing masks.
Yeah.
But it is a little bit different. Basically, she says she like makes fun of his wealth.
Yeah.
Saying it'll like all crash down on him, which
it does very soon.
It does, yeah. And then she kisses him and leaves. And one thing I thought was funny is when he's leaving, someone tells him, "Your wife said you were taking a cab home."
Oh yeah, doesn't she just steal his Lamborghini or something?
Something, yeah. And then Bruce meets with Morgan Freeman, aka
Uh,
Lucius Fox, aka
yeah,
God.
who retired in the last movie, but I guess decided to come back after Bruce stopped being Batman.
He resigned because he was spying on everyone, and I guess now he's cool with them. Do they explain that? I'm.
They don't. He's just kind of in charge again.
What the fuck? Are you kidding me? There is one funny exchange between them where Morgan Freeman, aka Lucius Fox, aka God, he says, these conversations used to end with an unusual request. And then Bruce Wayne says, I retired.
And then he's like, "Well, I have something to show you anyway, so you're coming with me, basically."
He like shows him a plane and then says, yes, it does come in black.
He said that there was planned to be autopilot, but it wasn't currently operational. And he said that he thought that that's something Bruce Wayne could take care of.
The Death Star is not fully operational. Just made me think of that. Then we get a scene of Bruce meeting with Alfred.
Well, Bruce is trying on like a leg brace, basically, so he can go out and still be Batman. And Alfred knows that he's trying to track down Bane, and he's like, and Alfred's trying to talk him out of it.
Yeah.
And he tells him the story of what he's heard about Bane. First of all, I don't know how the hell Alfred's been hearing about Bane. Like, who does he talk to?
He just knows everything.
And he tells him the story that he comes from this place called the Pits of Hell. That he just emerged from there one day, and that he was trained by Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah. He also says Bane was part of the League of Shadows, but he was excommunicated, which
indicates he's more extreme than Ra's al Ghul somehow, who was ready to destroy the entirety of Gotham.
Not even Ra's al Ghul wanted this guy. That is really...
That's a red flag.
That's, yeah. And then Bane shows up. And then Bane shows up.
Yeah, Bane shows up at the stock exchange.
Yeah, where things are going fucking crazy, apparently. Guns go off. Doesn't he, like, break a guy's neck here?
I think he does, yeah. In order to get, like, a card.
And also, when Bane says, for now, he sounded a little like General Grievous.
A little bit, yeah. I think he's doing it to basically disrupt the stock market and just cause a lot of trades.
Yeah, that makes
sense. To happen all at once, just to kind of cause a little bit of chaos.
That makes sense, yeah. And everything becomes chaos. So I guess that means Bane is also an agent of chaos.
Yeah.
But yeah, they take some hostages and there's a car chase. There were some silly lines around here, I thought, mostly from this one cop.
It's like, hey, you better stand back, just let Batman do his thing.
Oh boy, you are in for a show tonight, son. That was one line I thought was really silly. Which, that's another thing about this movie. The cops are idiots. In this movie.
Yeah.
Which I'd complain about that a little bit more, but to be fair, in the Die Hard movies, the cops are also idiots.
Yeah. It's just kind of a recurring theme whenever you have the main character be someone that kind of goes against the cops.
Yeah, John McClane is like one of the only competent cops in that movie.
Yeah.
And then Batman shows up on his motorcycle 46 minutes into the movie.
Yeah. There's not a lot of Batman in this movie.
I noticed
he shows
that.
up 46 minutes in, shows up like an hour and 10 minutes in, and then he's gone until the last part of the movie.
I guess most of it was about Bruce Wayne, this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of think of it, that's kind of a recurring theme with these movies. Batman's not really...
Yeah. It focuses a lot more on Bruce Wayne than it does Batman.
And there's one cop, he decides that they want to catch Batman. He says, who do you want to catch? A robber or the son of a bitch who killed Harvey Dent? Because they're still mad at Batman for quote-unquote killing Harvey Dent.
It's been 8 years, move on.
It's kind of hard to move on when he was basically their Martin Luther King or Bobby Kennedy. I guess he was based on Bobby Kennedy.
Yeah.
So. And then we get a scene of, oh god damn it. When will this end? Selena Kyle, she's now wearing her Catwoman costume, basically.
Yep.
And she's breaking into a safe?
And there's actually something interesting about her design that I actually really like with this one. She has these goggles that she wears that she can, like, flip up, basically. And when she flips those up, that's what looks like the cat ears.
The cat ears, yeah. Because with the other one, with Michelle Pfeiffer, it was the mask just had cat ears on it already.
And then with Zoe Kravitz, it's like a ski mask that's pointy at two ends.
Yeah. Something I noticed also is most of the movies Catwoman is in, she kind of feels like an afterthought.
She does. Like, you can take Catwoman out of most of the Batman films, and you don't really have to change a lot.
Especially with the new one with Zoe Kravitz. Like, she really adds nothing to that movie. That being said, I think Anne Hathaway's pretty good in this as a Catwoman. She was not the first choice I would have gone with, but I thought she was decent in it for what she was given. Again, Catwoman's just kind of superfluous in this movie when you really think about it. And in most of them, I mean, and then Batman shows up. Well, I guess he already showed up. And they try to close him off, but he gets away in his bat plane.
As one does.
And like I said, the cops in this are very dumb.
Yeah.
Now that Gordon's in the hospital, they're idiots.
No one knows what they're doing anymore.
You got the one guy who's basically Dwayne Robinson from Die Hard.
So Batman shows up.
And then Batman shows up.
And he basically stopped Selena from shooting this guy that was basically confronting her after she tried to rob
Daggett, played by Krennic. I mean, to be fair, he is trying to build the Death Star, so...
And then we get one of my favorite lines out of this whole trilogy. One of my favorite scenes. Batman and Selena Kyle are just talking on the roof. He ends up looking off to the side for a second and then looks back over, and she's gone. And in the Batman voice, even though there is no one around, no one to talk to, he talks in the Batman voice and says, "So that's what that feels like."
Basically just pulls a Groucho Marx and just stares right at the camera and talks to it. He basically broke the fourth wall.
He did. It's so weird.
I thought the line you were going to mention was when she gets in his plane and says, "My mother warned me about getting into cars of strange men." And Batman says,
"This isn't a car."
Yeah, this isn't a car. I thought that was the line you were going to mention.
Oh, there's a fucking...
This movie felt a little bit sillier than the previous ones.
Yeah.
And then Alfred, he's scolding Bruce again.
Yeah.
He says, "I see from the television coverage that you have your taste for wanton destruction back." Again, a funny line. And Bruce, he doesn't seem to be taking Bane all that seriously. He just calls him a mercenary.
Yeah.
And then Alfred, he tells Bruce about the letter that Rachel gave him, saying that she chose Harvey over him, and he says that he burned it.
This obviously makes Bruce pretty mad. He says, "How dare you use Rachel against me?" And he and Alfred basically split up.
And one thing I'll say about this scene, phenomenal acting from Michael Caine.
Oh, yeah.
Here. Like, he
fantastic.
Looks genuinely sad, you know. He looks like he actually, you know, genuinely cares about saving Bruce's life. And then...
Yeah.
Nope, Bruce just says, "Goodbye, Alfred." A very sad parting right there.
Yeah. And then after that, Alfred's gone from basically the whole movie.
Which, that's gotta be hard on Bruce not having the support, you know.
Yeah, the one person who was always there.
He was basically the only person who still had hope in it. Well, besides Gordon to a lesser extent.
Yeah.
And not only does that happen, Bruce is now broke.
Yep. Because when Bane went in to mess with the stock market, he ended up basically bankrupting Wayne Enterprises in the process.
Which results in Daggett, who Ben Mendelsohn's character, getting the company.
Yeah.
Daggett's working for Bane, basically. So it makes sense that he would mess with the stock market like that now. Okay, now it adds up.
But before Daggett can fully take control, Bruce appoints Miranda Tate to become the CEO of Wayne Enterprises.
Yeah, because he needs someone to help save the company, and he thinks she's the one for the job. And he shows her the underground warehouse where the fusion reactor is. And he wants her to take control of it so that somebody doesn't turn it into a nuclear weapon.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
And one thing about this scene that I love is they're just in Lucius Fox's office, which also happens to be in an elevator to the secret area where they're hiding a nuclear reactor.
He has an office in the elevator. I feel like that would cause some awkward situations.
Yeah. Like, what if some dude just walks in and falls down the giant elevator shaft that's just left there?
Or somebody has to go
that's
up
a lawsuit.
or something. Like, oh, sorry, your office is here. I guess and there's a business meeting, and they're all mad at Bruce because of his dumb business decisions, basically.
Yeah.
Which they don't know that he was helping fund his superhero hobby, obviously. Yeah. Or, sorry, spelunking.
Yeah.
And Krennic talks to Bane. Krennic. Daggett. That would be Daggett. The worst, one of the worst fucking team-ups possible if Krennic teamed up with Bane, because they would have a nuclear bomb and the Death Star.
Yeah, no, you're not gonna win that fight.
But yeah, so Krennic talks to Bane, and he's mad that the hit on the stock exchange
didn't make him the CEO, basically.
So basically, Bane is trying to take over Wayne's business. So again, a lot of this movie is business deals. Bane is trying to run Batman's own business. That's kind of amazing, actually. Wouldn't Bane be such a great CEO? Like I could just see, like, right next to, like, Liberty Mutual or, like, the General guy, you have Bane's face, you know? And it says, "I'm Gotham's reckoning," right there, which that's the line he says in the scene. He says, "I'm Gotham's reckoning," breaks his neck, you know. And then we move on. Blake gives Bruce a ride. And Blake says he was glad to see Batman again, so he kind of fanboys over him for a bit.
Yeah. Again, he feels like a minor character, like a character you could just have show up in one of the scenes that he shows up in and he'd be minor. But they keep putting in this minor character into all these different scenes, and so you're like, I guess he's a main character.
I guess he's Zeppo Marx. To Bruce Wayne's Groucho in this movie. Except Bruce doesn't insult him as much as Groucho insults Zeppo. But anyway, Bruce talks to Selena. He needs her to help find Bane, basically.
Yeah. And so she technically does bring him to Bane, except she leads him into Bane's trap.
Although another thing, he goes to talk to Miranda and has her do the housekeeping, because Alfred left.
Yep.
And she kisses him, apparently. He kisses both Selena and Miranda Tate in this movie, which...
I mean, he is a playboy.
True, yeah. He's Howard Hughes, again. And then Batman shows up. And Batman meets with Catwoman, and she goes to show him where Bane is. And of course, he's living down in the sewers.
Yep. Right underneath Wayne Enterprises.
Yep. And then she traps him in with Bane.
And Bane just gives this great series of monologues.
Bane has a lot of great speeches in this movie. That's another thing I noticed. And this is one of the most famous ones.
Oh, you think darkness is your ally? You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it. I didn't see the light until I was already a man. By then it was nothing to me but blinding.
And so they have this fight where Bane is basically
But one thing, okay. Well, I guess we already know that, but he says he's here to fulfill Ra's al Ghul's destiny.
Yep, and he reveals that he knows that Batman is Bruce Wayne.
That is also a very important detail. Because, I don't know, I guess he's Bane. He just knows things.
And then Bane is basically just flattening Batman during their fight.
Yeah, Batman gets his ass kicked in this fight.
And it ends with such a great line. He starts to lift Batman up and he goes, "Ah yes, I was wondering what would break first. Your spirit or your body?" And then just breaks his back in half over his knee.
Yeah, which... That's what Bane does. He likes to break people. He breaks necks.
I'm pretty sure that was a panel in one of the comics.
Yeah, probably.
Because that was one of the more famous. Yeah,
that
was one of the more famous moments.
Line is where he breaks Batman.
Yeah,
it's trying to break him both physically and mentally, which that's a really interesting dynamic there, because really you look at the previous Batman villains, they could mess with him psychologically, but physically they weren't really a match for him.
Exactly.
But Bane, Jesus Christ, he puts Batman in the hospital basically. He's like Ivan Drago from Rocky IV, for fuck's sake. And then Selena Kyle, she escapes. She goes to an airport, and Blake interrogates her.
Because he's like, "Hey, Bruce is gone. What happened? Where's the Batman?"
I'm his biggest fan. But he puts her in jail. She ends up in jail.
Specifically, they put her in an all-men's prison.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Where everyone that was arrested as part of the Harvey Dent Act was placed.
They got some weird prison and court systems going on there in Gotham.
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne. He wakes up in that prison that they mentioned earlier.
The pits of hell.
And Bane, he's basically just tormenting him, saying he's a torturer not of his body, but of his soul.
Yeah.
And he's basically telling him that he's kind of doing the James Bond villain thing where he's explaining his plan a little bit.
Yeah.
Although I guess he keeps it a little bit vague, but he says he's going
his plan is basically to destroy Gotham. So kind of what every other villain's tried to do so far.
But through a different method. He says he's going to give the citizens hope and then destroy Gotham.
Yeah.
Because he says you can't have despair without hope. So that's a little bit different from what Ra's al Ghul did.
Yeah.
Also a little bit more clever, too, because Ra's al Ghul basically just went, okay, I'm just going to use this gas and just attack everybody.
Yeah.
Not going to be subtle about it. Whereas Bane, he's like, he's going to pretend, I guess to be a demagogue, basically, but he's going to give power, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. Real quick, I'm going to grab some water.
I just ran out of... I'm almost out of water here, actually. You back yet?
Alright, I'm back.
Okay. And then we get a scene of... Oh, god damn it. Miranda Tate and Morgan Freeman, aka Lucius Fox, aka God, are going to a board meeting, but guess who shows up? Bane shows up. Yep, Bane. Bane. His name is Bane. God. Imagine if Uma Thurman was in this movie. She could be Miranda Tate, I guess.
Yeah.
Bane, he's basically shown where the reactor is.
Yeah. And he wants to use it in order to build a bomb, which was something that Bruce and Lucius were afraid of.
That makes this the second Batman movie where Bane uses bombs. I was just thinking about that when it got to that scene, just like... And also, while this is going on, Gordon's still in the hospital. He's just been in the hospital bed this whole movie, barking orders at people. Like, come on, give Gary Oldman a little more to do, for fuck's sake. And they also establish, while Bruce is in this prison, that Bane is the only person who has ever escaped from the prison. The only person to escape.
Yeah, they basically tell this story about this child who was born and raised inside of this prison.
I was born in it!
Molded by it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, because it's this tunnel, and you can there's a few steps on it, but you have to climb up basically.
Yeah.
Also, while this is going on, Bane has set up a bunch of bombs around the city, including one which goes off outside the tunnels. Every cop in the city is down in these tunnels, except for Blake and Gordon, basically.
Yeah, it's way to put all of your eggs into the one basket.
And then they get trapped down there.
Well, one thing real quick. There's
Are
a football game.
Are you fucking kidding me? Every single cop is now trapped down in these tunnels. That was another thing I thought was stupid about this movie.
Yeah, it's no police force would send every single one of their cops to the same location.
Except
especially
for the guy who's
if it's
in
a
the
city
hospital and the guy who's just, hey, I'm here. What?
Also, the football team, the Gotham City football team had Hawkeye colors on, so that's cool.
That's right, yeah, yellow and black. Which, that's another thing. There's a football game going on at the same time.
Yeah.
There's a kid singing Star Spangled Banner at a football game. Bane says, that's a lovely, lovely voice. I remember when I first saw this, some of the friends I was watching it with, they really laughed at that line. And then the football field gets blown up. The football game is going on while the explosions are going off, so they're just all running while the explosions are going off, and they're just all falling into the holes, except for one guy who ends up making a touchdown. And he just turns around and looks and he didn't notice that there were explosions going off while he was running.
He was in the zone.
I've never been NFL, so I don't know what it's like. You do, obviously.
Yeah. I'm a star quarterback.
Yep. Take that, Peyton Manning. But anyway, and then Bane shows up, just wearing his huge jacket. He picks up a microphone and talks to the people at the football game. And I like this speech he gives here. He starts it off by saying,
Gotham! Take control! Take control of your city!
He has the nuclear scientist there with him, too.
Yeah.
Talks to the guy, asks him, what is your name? He tells him his name, and what is this device? And he explains that it's a nuclear bomb, and they ask him, and who can disarm this device?
Only me.
And then he says, only you. Thank you, good doctor, and then just snaps his neck. And this is happening in an entire stadium, too. Just
Yeah.
thousands of people watching this. Jesus Christ.
And then let's not forget, he announces that some ordinary citizen in Gotham has the detonator for setting off the nuclear bomb.
The detonator. I was kind of laughing at some of the delivery here, honestly. Because there's like certain words that he'll like emphasize a bit.
Yeah.
And it just it sort of has this like Christopher Walken vibe a little bit. Where he'll like just emphasize certain words, like pitch of his voice like shifts a little bit. It's very unusual.
Yeah. A lot of his lines, like towards the beginning of the movie, he sounds like he's trying to do an old man voice at points.
That too, yeah. I know some people have said he sounds a little bit like Sean Connery. There are also a few moments where Bane sounded sort of like the frontier gibberish guy from Blazing Saddles.
Yeah.
And then we get a scene of Blake. He goes to the hospital to get Gordon. And Gordon, he just gets up out of the hospital bed.
Yeah. I'm guessing he had whatever Charlie's grandfather had.
In Willy Wonka. Yeah. He's like, I got the golden ticket. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. We don't need to know like he's Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
Fuck it. But Bane, he's basically holding the entire city hostage because another thing is they blew up the bridges too.
Yeah.
So they can't get out. There's like news footage of people saying, Gotham, we have not abandoned you. Yes, you have. You totally have, assholes.
Yeah.
And then Bane, he gives another speech, and this is another speech I really like. He basically he calls out Harvey Dent for being a false idol.
Yeah, he basically reveals to the world that Harvey Dent actually took Commissioner Gordon's child and wife hostage and tried to kill them, and that Batman saved him.
And that's an interesting turn of events too, because it's kind of showing that there are consequences from them trying to cover up Harvey's death.
Yeah. And like one of the things that Bane mentions is that there are people who've been in prison for 8 years because of the Dent Act.
Yeah.
And it almost makes it seem like there was really no trial involved, or at least maybe not like a fair trial. And so there could be some people that have just been locked away for no real good reason.
And Blake, he's like, him and Gordon, they're watching this on like a TV, I think. While this is going on. And Gordon explains to Blake that someday, because Blake is really mad at him for lying, basically.
Yeah.
And Gordon's like saying someday he'll have to face a moment of crisis. And again, really good acting here from Gary Oldman. And then Bane gives a speech. That should be another running one. And then Bane gives a speech. He gives this speech, saying,
We take Gotham from the corrupt, the rich, the oppressors of generations who have kept you down with myths of opportunity, and we give it back to you, the people. Gotham is yours. None shall interfere. Do as you please.
Basically installs a martial law.
Yeah.
Just giving them permission, just to loot the city under the guise of letting them have power over the elites. When really, Bane is the one that has power.
Yep, because he's got a whole bunch of tumblers rolling around. And a nuclear bomb, so...
Bane is Big Brother, I guess. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. Gotta throw in a 1984 reference. Lots of riots start happening, which seems to happen in all of these movies.
Yeah.
Although, I also find this also gives an interesting contrast between, like, Bane and the other villains in these movies. And what's interesting is that Bane does a better job at proving the Joker's point in this one than the Joker did. Because there's that line he said in The Dark Knight, where he says, when the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other. And then Bane kind of proves it right in a way.
Yeah.
You know, because everybody's just eating each other now.
And then we get another time skip where it's like, what, 3 months pass? And there's a scene basically inside a new court system that Bane and his men have set up.
Yeah.
Where we see the judge is none other than Dr. Crane.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Cillian Murphy's back.
Yep, so he gets his role as the Scarecrow, who's apparently a judge now.
I find it interesting that he's treating it more like an auction.
Yeah.
He's like, just sold to, whoever, And they basically have two options. They either get exiled or die. And
they're both
really it's
die.
one option. They die they die or they die, because when they get exiled, they just put them out on some ice and then they fall in and die.
Yeah. Dr. Crane becoming like a judge actually really makes me think, if Heath Ledger were still around when this movie was being made.
Would he be the...
Well, like, what kind of role would... Because I don't think he would become a judge, but it would be interesting to see what kind of role he would play, even as just like a cameo.
Yeah.
Because Joker would have been let out during all of this.
Oh god, yeah, that's right. Yeah, because he's in jail. He would probably be loving this, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And at the same time, Bruce Wayne is down in the prison, and he's exercising, trying to, he's having his Rocky montages here.
Yeah.
Just gotta add in the music.
And also, there's a pretty big gap from, like, just a gap in time from the last time we saw Bruce to now.
Doesn't he have a beard and mustache now?
Yeah. Well, I'm not even talking about, like, it's been, like, 3 months in, their universe, but it's also been, like, I think almost 40 minutes since the last time we saw Bruce. Like, it's a really long gap in time that we go with just no Bruce and no Batman.
Well, this is what happens to the city when Batman isn't there, or the cops,
And also, while Batman is in the prison, he ends up having a hallucination.
That's right, yeah.
Where he sees the spirit of Ra's al Ghul again.
Yep. Liam Neeson is back. Qui-Gon.
And basically, he shows up and he's like, my child escaped. Have fun.
Yeah, because he explains he had a wife who was taken from him and that Bane was their child.
Yeah.
And I bet he's really proud of his son now. Miranda Tate, she is now the CEO of Wayne Enterprises.
Yep, so she's one of the people being held hostage.
And then God, a.k.a. Lucius Fox, a.k.a. Morgan Freeman, says the bomb will go off in 23 days, and they need to stabilize it. And during all this, Bruce has just been watching the news updates from prison.
Yeah.
He's just been sitting down in prison while his entire city has been falling apart in front of his eyes.
Let's not forget that this prison, which is like basically a giant pit dug in the ground, has a working television. A working flat screen television.
That's true, yeah. Even hell has TV, apparently.
And I really hope that it's not the only TV, because Bruce breaks it by throwing a rock at the screen.
That's true, yeah.
Do you know how much that would suck for the rest of the prisoners if that was the only TV?
They just spend the whole time singing. I don't think they care.
Who knows, maybe once Bruce gets out, he comes back and gives them another few TVs.
And there's also this old man in the prison that he's talking to.
And the old man basically says that the reason why he's failing is because he's not afraid of death enough.
And also, he also mentions another interesting thing. He says Bane climbed out of the pit without rope.
Yep.
So he's been doing it wrong, also. And then we get a scene which probably had people standing up and clapping in the theater, where he's climbing up out of the you see bats, you got the prisoners chanting, the The music swells, he makes the jump, and then finally he's escaped.
Yep.
Which, that's a pretty awesome moment right there. He was at his... And that's another thing. That might have been Bruce's lowest point just in all of these movies.
Yeah. It's almost like he's being taken back to the same point he was at in Batman Begins.
Yeah.
Like, during all of his training, or I guess right before training with the League of Shadows, when he was in, like, the one other prison.
Selena, she's stopping some thieves, which... I know we mentioned this, but Catwoman doesn't really do much in this movie.
Not really.
But she's been pretty irrelevant to the plot up to this point.
Yeah.
But anyway, Selena stops some thieves, and then she sees Bruce, which obviously this is a huge shock. Like, how the fuck did you get here? And he tells her the bomb will go off. Basically gets her help.
Yep, he's like, I'll give you the clean slate program if you help me to stop Bane.
End scene. Gordon and several others, they get sentenced to the do it or die, the do it also being died. Execution, I get auction, I don't know what the fuck to call it.
Yeah.
But,
the sentencing.
Sentencing, yeah. I sentence you to either exile, in which you die, or to die, in which you die.
And so Batman ends up showing up and saving Fox and the other Wayne Enterprises board members.
Oh, he announces that he's back because there's like this... He lights a fuse and it creates this fiery bat signal on a building.
So he frees Fox and the rest of the Wayne Enterprises board so that he can get Fox's help with potentially stopping the bomb. And Fox basically says that the device has become so unstable that no matter what, it's going to explode tomorrow.
Yep.
And the only way that they could possibly make it stable again is by putting it back into the reactor. And so Batman and Blake decide that the only way that's getting done is if they help get all of the other cops out of the tunnels, finally.
Oh, wait, we forgot to say, and then Batman shows up.
Oh, yeah, and then Batman shows up. And so they decide the only way that they can really do this is if they have the help of all the other cops who have been trapped in the tunnels for 3 months now.
Oh, yeah, they, like, blow up the debris so that they can get out. And
Catwoman,
then she wants Batman to come with her and save himself.
But he decides he's going to stay behind and help save Gotham.
Again, showing a contrast between a more, cynical worldview and a more optimistic worldview. But yeah.
And so all of the cops get together the next day and they start to wage a war, essentially.
This part was awesome.
I loved this part.
This part, like, there's that big fight in the streets between Bane's thugs and the cops and citizens of Gotham. I love that all the citizens, they just get together and we're gonna fight for Batman, basically. That part was great. Batman's back. Let's kick their asses. That was great.
And then we get the follow-up fight scene of Batman and Bane.
Yeah, Bane, he's there. He says, "So, you came back to die with your city?" And then Batman says, "No, I came back to stop you." Which I thought that line was a little bit silly, but anyway.
And then Batman ends up going kind of nuts and starts, like, bashing in Bane's mask, basically.
Yeah, it, like, lets some air out and stuff, which you mentioned earlier in the movie, that taking off the mask would be extremely painful.
And Bane is very surprised to not only see Batman back, but also to have Batman beating him. Because then he gives the line, "I broke you."
He broke his back and left him down in a pit to die. I mean, you wouldn't expect him to come back from that.
Yeah. And then we get the Batman line that just kills me in this movie, where he goes, "Where is it? Where's the trigger? Where's the trigger? Where is it?"
That was
just over and over again.
I remember that, that was... Because he needs to stop the bomb, you know. But yeah, that was the delivery there. Yeah, was a little ridiculous, you know. Just
And then we get the big plot twist that Miranda Tate is working with Bane.
yeah,
And not only is she working with Bane, but she also managed to escape the pits of hell.
she is Ra's al Ghul's child, Talia.
Talia al Ghul, who in the animated series and I think in quite a few of the comics was love interest for
And
Bruce.
Bane was basically her protector.
Yep.
And Miranda stabs Batman.
Yep.
Which, I don't know. Would stabbing Batman work?
The thing is, they spent so much time, especially in the Dark Knight, building up the armor so that you couldn't like do that. And then it happens anyway in this movie.
Yeah. And also this twist really pissed a lot of people off too.
There's one line though, Talia al Ghul says that actually made me think of the Joker.
Well, what was that one?
So while I want to see if I can find the exact quote, but basically while stabbing Batman, she like talks why she explains why she loves to use knives. She's like, it's the slow knife.
I might have to take a little bit of a break, actually. My cat just came downstairs. And I'm gonna have to feed them soon, but I'll be back in a few minutes.
Alright.
Okay. Didn't want them to be starving while we did the rest of the podcast.
Understandable. I found the quote.
Okay, good.
So, Talia al Ghul stabs Batman, and she starts twisting it inside of him, and she's like, you see, it's the slow knife. The knife that takes its time. The knife that waits years without forgetting, then slips quietly between the bone. That's the knife that cuts deepest.
Yeah, because
it sounds slightly Jokerish.
Because there's that quote where the Joker's talking about how, you don't want to use knives, guns are too quick, like that whole monologue. Yeah. I feel like there might have been some like little subtle hints thrown in there towards like the Joker, just indirect stuff,
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people didn't like this twist. I know that.
It feels a little forced.
It does, yeah. I feel like if there was a little bit more build up to it, like if she was introduced in a previous movie, like there was a little more,
Because here's the thing, her being Talia al Ghul changes nothing. If her name was always Miranda Tate, it's the same character. That nothing changes.
It just felt, and I there was another thing I remember you mentioning in the Batman Begins podcast.
Yeah.
You said one thing they could have done with Ra's al Ghul is that they could have had it so he's in the beginning of the movie. So they establish his character and just, like, throw him away, I guess, But then you said, like, they could bring him back as the villain in this movie.
Yeah.
It's like kind of a twist, like I've been alive this whole time, which that could have worked, maybe.
Yeah.
And then just have the Scarecrow be the villain of the first one.
Because the thing is, Bane in this movie, they basically try to play him as Batman's equal, almost. So he's able to not only outfight Batman, but at times, he's able to come up with pretty solid plans. So, like, he obviously can think through things.
Yeah, so it kind of undermines Bane a little bit, too.
Yeah.
Having it so he's not being the whole mastermind of this plan, but instead just kind of a heavy, I guess.
Yeah, and so if you wanted to have someone be Batman's equal, that's the perfect time to use Ra's al Ghul.
Ra's al Ghul, exactly, yeah. Because he's basically established as Batman's equal in the other ones.
Yeah. So I still stand by my view that Ra's should have been the final villain.
And we would have gotten Liam Neeson in this movie, too.
Exactly.
You know, I'd love for the end of the Batman movies to be Batman fighting Liam Neeson, you know? I'm not necessarily opposed to the Talia al Ghul twist in concept. Like, it could have worked, but it was just rushed, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't done correctly.
Trying to wrap up a series, you know, it's hard. It's hard. I should know. And she tries triggering the bomb, but
Gordon gets to it in time and puts like a signal jammer on it so that she can't.
Yeah, blocks the bomb signal, you know. Somebody jammed the signal. Only one person would dare give me the raspberry. Lone Star.
Yeah, and you know, try as hard as he might, Gordon only delayed the explosion for 11 minutes.
Also, I thought Bane's death was anticlimactic.
It feels rushed. So he decides that he's gonna go kill Batman.
Yeah.
Pulls out a shotgun, and then he just gets blasted.
Catwoman's riding the bat bike. And
yeah. She bursts through the wall, blows him up, and then runs away.
It kind of felt like the end of Thunderball a little bit, where Largo gets shot by Domino. Yeah. Hey, it's a Christopher Nolan movie. He would love the Bond references in here. But yeah, I feel like they could have had a better death for Bane.
Yeah.
It just feels like they were running out of ideas. Like, have him fight Batman, and then, I don't know, like...
Exactly. Not just have Catwoman shoot him. That feels rushed. And so, during all of this, Talia is basically running around in, I think, a tumbler, following around the truck with the bomb.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
And then Batman shows up.
Oh yeah, the Batman shows up, and actually Catwoman shows up.
Yep, and then Catwoman shows up.
Yeah, Catwoman shows up on the Bat bike, and Batman shows up in the Bat, so you know, basically the Batwing, the flying Batman mobile, and crushes the truck with the nuclear bomb on it, because that's a smart idea.
Oh god, yeah, that could cause it to go off.
Yeah. And she ends up dying, but she reveals that she started the failsafe in the nuclear reactor and floods it.
Yeah, and
so
there's like
that
a flood, which in Batman's warehouse, which really catches Morgan Freeman off guard.
Yeah. And what that basically means is now they can't stabilize the bomb, and there's 2 minutes left before it explodes.
You can't stop the bomb, yeah. The Doomsday Machine went off, and now everybody's fucked. Yeah. Yeah. Cue We'll Meet Again playing over the end credits while explosions are going. Sorry. Look, nuclear bombs had to fit in a Dr. Strangelove reference somewhere. So I guess that means Batman is Slim Pickens. Well, kind of. Anyway.
And so Batman basically decides that he's going to have to take the nuclear bomb himself and fly it over Gotham Bay to prevent the city from being destroyed.
And I like this scene between him and Gordon, where he basically like reveals that he's
Bruce Wayne.
And he says a hero can be anyone, even a man doing something as simple and reassuring as putting a coat around a young boy's shoulders to let him know that the world hadn't ended.
Yep.
Which is a good quote, and it also is a reference to a scene in Batman Begins. Yep. Where Gordon comforts the young Bruce Wayne, and then that's what makes him realize that Bruce Wayne is Batman, you know? It's just a nice little scene, you know, it's their last time interacting, too.
Yeah.
In these movies, you know?
And so Batman flies the bat and the bomb out over the bay.
And it detonates.
Yep. And
yeah,
so
roll credits.
And so, you know, Gotham's pretty sad
it's simple.
Because
we kill the Batman.
So Gotham's pretty sad, but they end up rearresting everybody that Bane let out.
Yeah.
Blake ends up resigning from the police force, going like, well, that was awful. Hated every minute of that.
I had to take care of everything while all those idiots were trapped in the sewer. And Gordon, he gives a eulogy at Bruce Wayne's funeral, which is attended by Morgan Freeman, aka Lucius Fox, aka God, Alfred. Alfred's back.
Yeah, Alfred shows up again, and he's heartbroken.
He's crying, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, I've failed, Bruce.
Yeah.
Time to take my vacation in Florence.
That was a really sad scene right there. Oh, Blake's also at the funeral as well.
Yeah.
And he says, no one's ever going to know who saved an entire city. And then Gordon says, they know. It was the
Batman.
Yeah. They have a statue of Batman unveiled.
Yep.
You know. And Bruce Wayne's will is revealed.
Yep.
And he leaves his stuff to Alfred and the city of Gotham.
And they open up the Wayne family manor to now be the new orphanage.
Yep. That was very nice of him.
Yep.
So wait, nobody's going to get suspicious that both Batman and Bruce Wayne are dead?
Nah. How do they explain how Bruce Wayne died?
I guess he just died in one of the riots.
That would make sense.
Blake, somebody calls him Robin.
Yeah, he goes to pick up a duffel bag that Bruce left behind for him. And then the clerk checks his ID and she's like, you should use your birth name. I like it. And his birth name is Robin. So that's our only Robin reference we get.
They didn't bother to include, Robin in the other ones, so... Yeah. There you go, Robin fans, He doesn't really say anything like, holy Toledo, Batman, but, he goes and finds the, but basically they're setting it up so I guess he's gonna be the next Batman.
Yeah. Because, the ending shot even is him in the Batcave.
Yep.
Lucius Fox is looking at another version of the Bat, basically. And he was trying to figure out how he could have gotten the autopilot working. And he found out that the autopilot actually was working and that Bruce had fixed it months ago.
Coincidence? I think not.
And so back in Florence, Alfred's on another one of his vacations, just in a restaurant. The same restaurant where he had the fantasies of seeing Bruce again.
Mm-hmm.
And he ends up seeing Bruce with Selina Kyle.
It's actually a drug trip he's having, and he hallucinated the whole movie. No, I'm kidding.
So he sees Bruce and Selina at the restaurant. They share a knowing glance.
Bruce Wayne is alive, huh?
Yep.
Or, sorry, Patrick Bateman is alive.
Yeah, that would be the true plot twist.
Which, that reminds me, I need to go return some videotapes. Bruce Wayne was Patrick Bateman all along. Jesus.
And then the final shot...
that was an interesting scene, because you think Batman's dead, but nope, he faked it. He faked his death. He's still alive, he's off. I guess I don't know if he's married to Selina or if he's just having dinner with it. They don't say anything there. Just Alfred sees him, and Alfred is finally happy. He can...
He can rest easy.
He can rest easy. I'm sure he lost a lot of sleep during the events of this movie.
Yeah.
Blake, aka Robin, he goes to the Batcave, and there's a platform that raises up.
Yeah, and so it basically indicates that he's going to go on to be the next Batman.
Yeah. It's been 10 years, and we're still waiting, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, that'll be after the DC doesn't know what to do with Batman. They're going to try bringing back Michael Keaton, but for one reason or another, that's not going to work, so now they have to bring back Robin Blake as the next Batman.
But yeah, that's the end of the movie.
And of the trilogy as a whole.
Yeah, and...
I think
it was a good ending.
Yeah.
It has problems, though.
It works. It's a bit long, but it is overall an enjoyable movie, I'd say.
It is. That's something we should point out. It is a very entertaining movie.
Yeah. It's a great, background movie. If you have to do, chores around the house, or just, finish something up, having this on in the background is just, great to have.
Yeah, because it's a great spectacle too. Because there's just a lot of shit happening. It's just the city tearing itself apart for 2 hours, basically. And I actually think this might be Bale's best performance as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Of the trilogy. He does a really good job. Like, he has a really interesting character arc in this one, where, he doesn't want to be Batman anymore, but then he realized they kind of need him, that he can't be Batman anymore. So he's kind of fucked. But, god damn it, I need to stop that masked bastard. How to stop one masked bastard with other masked bastards. And I also really like Tom Hardy in this movie.
He has such a fun performance.
He is really entertaining as Bane.
It looks like he's having a great time too.
One of my favorite parts is this when he's giving that speech and he says, we give it back to you, the people, and just that weird head movement he's doing. He almost looks like a bobblehead. Yeah, he looks like he's just relishing that scene. I thought he was a good villain choice too. He wasn't an obvious pick. They could have went a really obvious choice, the Riddler or the Penguin or something.
I know that early in the movie's production, when they were first writing it, the Riddler was considered to be the main villain.
Yeah.
And actually they wanted to have DiCaprio play the Riddler.
I would have liked to have seen that. That would have been interesting.
It would have been a very interesting performance.
You would have had Bruce Wayne basically being Howard Hughes, and you have Leonardo DiCaprio, who played Howard Hughes in another movie. And of course, Leonardo DiCaprio, he was also in Inception, another Christopher Nolan movie. So, a lot of Christopher Nolan interconnections going on. And Bane, he's an enjoyable villain, he just wants to blow things up, of course.
And he succeeds.
Yeah. And he seemed like an actual threat, too, to Batman and to Gotham. Because you look at some Batman movies, the villains usually just aren't actual threats to Batman.
Like when you think about it, Penguin in Batman Returns,
the Penguin, Danny DeVito is really enjoyable, but he's kind of goofy, honestly.
Not only is he not a threat to Batman, he's not really a threat to Gotham.
Not really, no. Max Schreck is really, the real villain of that movie. Yeah. But anyway, although, speaking of Batman Returns, I do think Michelle Pfeiffer was a better Catwoman than Anne Hathaway.
I just feel like Anne Hathaway didn't really have enough to do in this movie.
She was good, but again, she just doesn't really...
she doesn't really stand out.
She just feels kind of shoehorned in.
Yeah.
Which, then again, in Batman Returns, it already felt like Catwoman was a bit shoehorned in. But she has more to do in that movie.
Yeah. And she's at least a little bit more tied into the plot.
Yeah. She has more of a character arc with Bruce in that one, where she, and they realize they can't be together, all that. Gary Oldman and Michael Caine, I thought, were both excellent. Again,
this might be Michael Caine's best Alfred performance, even if he's not in it for as much.
He has 2 crying scenes in this,
and they're both really good.
And Gary Oldman, he doesn't get as much to do as he did in the previous ones, but he's still good here.
Yeah.
I think the main problem with this movie is they're just trying to cram so much into it. And it just kind of loses focus a little bit.
And like I said, the pacing is super weird.
The pacing is weird. It's there's some scenes which are really short, some which are really long. There's the editing in this movie is not as fluid as in The Dark Knight. That's for sure. Also, the action scenes in this, they were good, but like some of the car chases and stuff I didn't think were as good
Yeah.
as in the previous ones, but those riot scenes
The
are
riots were good,
amazing. Those scenes
and
are amazing.
and the fights and the two Batman versus Bane fights.
The
Were
Batman and Bane fights are pretty good too, yeah.
It had a lot to live up to, and it doesn't quite reach it. But at the end of the day, it's still a really fun movie.
It is, yeah. And it's kind of a silly movie in some spots,
Yeah.
but it's entertaining. You know, it's not quite as dark as The Dark Knight
Yeah.
was. It might be a little bit. It is a little bit darker than Batman Begins, I would say.
Yeah.
Because I mean, threat of nuclear war. I mean, Jesus Christ.
It's hard to get heavier than that topic.
Yeah. Once the rockets are up, who cares where they go down? That's not my department, says Werner von Braun.
Oh, all right. Is that the Werner von Braun song?
Tom Lehrer, yes.
In one of my engineering courses, my first year, like we had this section on why ethics in engineering are important. So our professor played that song for the whole class.
Yeah, it's a great song. I love
It
Tom
is.
Lehrer. The what was the others? We will all go together when we go. That's also about nuclear war.
Yeah.
So that
I
could
mean,
also
99
fit.
Luftballons, I think, is also about nuclear war.
Yeah, that one's not a satirical song though.
No, it's German, though, so.
It is German. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It might be the Germans' attempt at satire.
You never know.
Anyway.
But Dark Knight Rises, there's a lot of good stuff here. I think it's a little hard to just dismiss the whole thing. You know, when you can tell a lot of care and effort went into it.
Yeah.
It's just that the script is a little bit of a mess. You know, it's kind of like Batman Returns, where it's very entertaining, but the script maybe could have used a little bit more revising.
Yeah. Maybe just a few rewrites towards the very end.
Yeah. You know, because the cast, they're all good. You know, Christopher Nolan, obviously, he's not, you know, like, you can tell Christopher Nolan was not just sitting in the trailers eating donuts the whole time. He was actually there on the set making sure everything's, in tip-top shape. Okay, so did you want to rank the movies now? And then
all right, so there's
the actors that played just of what we've done on the podcast.
Yeah. All right, so there's 7 Batman movies. I'd say that at number 7, the worst of the worst.
I know which one you're gonna put.
Batman Forever.
Not a shocker to me. I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah, that one's definitely the worst, and we have a whole episode on why I hate that movie, so I'm not going to go into detail.
You're not going to give it the dignity of even explaining yourself on that one.
No, it's just bad. Number 6 is Batman and Robin. All I can really say...
Not a shocker at all.
All I can really say about it is better than Batman Forever.
Okay.
Alright, number 5 is a bit difficult because the rest of them that we've talked about I consider good movies.
Yeah.
So I would just like to clarify that there is a wide chasm between number 6 and number 5.
Yeah, obviously.
I think number 5 is probably Dark Knight Rises.
Okay.
Then I think for number 4, I don't quite remember what I said in the Batman Begins episode, but the more I've thought about it, number 4 would probably be Batman Returns.
You said in the podcast actually that you preferred Batman Returns over Batman Begins.
I think now having the whole context of the story with Batman Begins and seeing the rest of the trilogy, I think I appreciate Batman Begins a little bit more now. So I would put Batman Begins at number 3.
Yeah.
Then put Batman at number 2, and The Dark Knight at number 1.
Mine is radically different from yours
Oh,
because
really?
at number 7 I have The Dark Knight. No, I'm kidding. Number 7 is Batman Forever. I can't really. I don't hate it like you do, but I can't really defend it either.
It's a bad movie.
It's a pretty forgettable movie. Like, as much as I like Jim Carrey as the Riddler, I don't even think that really lifts it up too much. Like, because just it has like Two-Face in that movie.
It's so stupid and so mishandled.
That's one of the worst mutilations of a comic book character that I've ever seen.
Yeah, especially when it's a really good like character and concept, and you just throw it away and waste Tommy Lee Jones on it.
I actually went and I didn't watch the full episodes, but I watched like clips of the animated series Two-Face.
Yeah,
because I remember that incarnation being. It is night and day. Like that version is great. You know,
the animated series version of a lot of these characters are actually super deep, and especially comparing.
Two-Face they did a really good job on. I was really impressed with the Two-Face of the animated series.
Because like in Mr. Freeze, for like the first time ever, was taken seriously with the
because he was mostly just a goofball that was
he was a joke character. They threw him away, and then they actually gave him motivations. They gave him a tragic backstory, and it worked.
Because on the 60s show, he usually just was like. I guess they gave him a little bit of a backstory. They gave him like kind of this whole revenge thing.
Yeah.
And he was played by George Sanders, but with Otto Preminger, they gave him those weird eyebrows, and it was just ridiculous. But and speaking of Mr. Freeze, my number 6 is Batman and Robin.
Yep.
As goofy as Mr. Freeze is in that movie, I still think that's a better handling of the character than what they did to Two-Face, honestly. Because at least they keep that backstory where he's trying to help his wife. Yeah, most of it is Arnold just doing ice puns. But at least they kept Mr. Freeze as Mr. Freeze.
Yeah.
They didn't just make him the Riddler 2.0. You know? And Arnold is just... No matter what movie he's in, he's always gonna make me smile.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't leave that movie just feeling completely miserable. I don't. Although I know there's pretty contrarian opinions on this because most people they think Batman and Robin is the worst of the worst. But
no,
which. It's a bad movie. I'm not gonna really defend it all that much. George Clooney is a terrible Batman.
Yep.
Probably the worst Batman we've ever had, if you ask me.
The Bat card. Never leave the cave without it.
This is why Superman works alone. We forgot to mention that line.
We did.
The Batman and Robin podcast. That line's always made me laugh, just for some reason.
Do you think it's the Christopher Reeve Superman that he's talking about?
I don't know. But yeah, Poison Ivy, Uma Thurman, she's kind of enjoyable in that movie, but yeah, I can't really
She's handled well enough. The motivations make sense.
Bane, on the other hand, is fucking stupid.
Bane was slaughtered.
But yeah. Bane he just growls and like goes, "Bomb!" Whatever you. And speaking of Bane, my number 5 is The Dark Knight Rises. It's flawed. It's maybe a little bit too long, but it's entertaining, you know.
Yeah.
It's entertaining. We just spent 2 hours talking about it, so, you know, I'm not going to go into too much detail. Much better Bane than in Batman and Robin, obviously.
Like I had mentioned, a just massive gap in the quality between number 6 and number 5. Right here.
Yeah, Anne Hathaway, she was okay as Catwoman, which, speaking of Catwoman, number 4, Batman Returns, which I listened to the podcast again that we did a while back, and I actually feel kind of bad about it because I spent most of it shitting on the movie. But even though I really enjoy it, but I just felt like I had to like say what some of the problems I had with it were. But you listen to it, most of it is just me talking about my issues with that movie. But it is a very enjoyable movie. It's very entertaining. I mean, if not just for the fact you have Danny DeVito and Christopher Walken in a Batman movie.
That is a good point.
And Michael Keaton, I thought Michael Keaton was pretty good in it too. You know, he felt more confident and settled into the role than in the first Batman movie. But I think the script is a little bit of a mess, and it doesn't really feel like a Batman movie. It feels more like just Tim Burton Winter Wonderland or something. But I think it's an entertaining movie. Batman Begins is number 3. You know, I don't think that one really needs much explanation.
Yeah.
That's about as perfect of a cast as you could get, actually, now that I think about it. Because, with the exception of Katie Holmes, you know.
Yeah.
Because you have Morgan Freeman, Michael Caine, Liam Neeson, all in the same movie. I mean...
Yeah, that's a very stacked cast.
Yeah. You can tell they were taking it very seriously. And number 2, Batman, the 1989 one, which... When I listen to the podcast again, it's not very coherent because most of it is just us listing off entertaining scenes. And that's kind of what I feel like that movie is, just a bunch of entertaining scenes.
See, that I feel like it's almost like a direct adaptation of a comic book to a movie.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how else to describe it, but it almost has that kind of feel to it. Which is really surprising considering Tim Burton never read a comic book.
Yeah, that's another thing. Tim Burton's like, he wasn't like huge into comic books, and he still did. Like, he did 2 Batman movies.
Yeah.
And I know there's some comic purists, they don't like that the Joker kills Batman's parents in that one.
It is kind of a weird thing.
It is, but I don't know. It kind of works for what they were kind of going for with that one. And considering, you know, Michael Keaton, considering he was mostly just known as a comedian at that time and he hadn't really done any, like, serious dramatic roles yet, he was actually pretty good.
He was. Well, that seems to be a theme with most of the Batmen that we've gotten. Like, the big Batman, at least. Because, you know, we had him, then we had Christian Bale.
I don't know. I mean, you watch Patrick Bateman, and that's basically Bruce Wayne, minus... Well, if you take away the murder, obviously.
Yeah, but we'll get into the Batman actors a little later.
But Batman, the 1989 one, I think is still really entertaining because I feel like it kind of gets, you know, shafted a little bit now that the Nolan films are out and stuff. I think it's a really entertaining movie, but probably mostly just because of Jack Nicholson. You know.
Yeah.
I love Jack Nicholson. He's one of my favorite actors. So, and he's having a blast playing the Joker in that movie. It's a really entertaining movie. Maybe a bit dated, you know.
Yeah.
A bit dated, but I think it's, in terms of pure entertainment value, it might be the best Batman movie.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, because it's really funny, you know. To be fair, it finds a good balance between being funny and being more serious, which a lot of the other ones don't find.
Yeah.
And number 1's The Dark Knight.
Yeah, there's like no contest for that one.
I don't think I need to explain that one.
Yeah.
And then ranking the Batman actors, I feel like this will be easy for you.
Number 4, George Clooney. I don't even want to talk about him. He sucks. He's basically just playing George Clooney in that movie.
You could put Danny Ocean in that movie, yeah, basically, yeah.
Number 3, Val Kilmer. I remember nothing of his performance, but at least I didn't hate it.
Even though you really hate that movie, though.
I do, but Val Kilmer's okay.
Val Kilmer's like one of the redeeming aspects of that movie for you, I guess.
Yeah. Number 2, Michael Keaton. Pretty fun to watch. There's not much really character to him. He's more so just there to be the Batman. and to keep the
He's
plot
more
moving
Batman,
along.
yeah, in that movie.
And
He gets more screen time as Bruce Wayne in Batman Returns, though.
Yeah. I also feel like his characterization is just a little bit weird. I'm particularly thinking about the scene in the first one where Joker confronts Bruce Wayne and his girlfriend, and he just smashes something. I forget what he smashes, but he smashes something against the wall and goes,
something.
"Yeah."
I love that scene, though.
Want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
I love that scene. He basically brought out his inner Beetlejuice in that moment, right there.
Yeah. And then number 1 is Christian Bale.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit unfair, though, because George Clooney and Val Kilmer were both in one movie each.
Yeah, and they didn't really have the best scripts to work with.
Michael Keaton was in 2 movies, and then Christian Bale was in 3. So maybe it is a little bit lopsided. But either way, my ranking is basically the same as yours. But
yeah.
Because number 4 is George Clooney. Because, again, it's basically just he's playing George Clooney, but occasionally he wears a Batman costume that has nipples on it. Okay. He has a Bat credit card. He's just a caricature of Batman in that movie. Like, you know. And something I was thinking about, because people tend to really shit on George Clooney. Whereas Adam West, gets more of a pass, even though they both were kind of doing the whole campy thing.
Yeah.
With Batman. But I think I realized why Adam West gets away with it and George Clooney doesn't. Adam West doesn't wink to the camera. Adam West he plays it very straight.
Yeah.
The stuff happening around him is ridiculous and he says ridiculous stuff, but he plays it like he believes what he's doing. George Clooney, half the time you're just thinking like, ooh, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, just like, it doesn't work. You have to follow the Leslie Nielsen rule of comedy and play it straight,
As straight as you possibly can.
Or if you're not playing it straight, then have somebody straight to go off of, like the Marx Brothers.
Yeah.
Number 3, Val Kilmer, which, as much as, you kind of shit on Val Kilmer, I thought he was actually decent as Bruce Wayne. They actually did give him a few scenes where they kind of explore a little bit of his tragic past a little bit. So there's a few moments like that, As Batman, he's just goofy, it's not really pretty nondescript.
The thing is, I just find his performance pretty forgettable, which is why I have him low down.
He's not a very memorable performance, to be fair. I mean, and it doesn't help, again. He was only in one movie as Batman.
And it doesn't help that the rest of the movie is so psychotic and insane. Let's please move on. I don't want to talk about Batman forever.
Don't worry. We don't have to do another podcast on it, so we won't. But number 2 is Michael Keaton, which he's not my favorite Batman, but I actually think he's the most likable.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I like him in the role so much, because he's the one I sympathize with the most. Because when he's playing Bruce Wayne, he's playing it more like he's just kind of out of place, like sort of kid who never grew up, I guess. So he's just he feels really out of place in this corporate world. Whereas Bale is kind of a dick when he's playing Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, he's basically a Hugh Hefner character, like you said.
I kept referencing Howard Hughes, not Hugh Hefner.
That's what I meant.
But Hugh Hefner would also work because he's a playboy.
Yeah.
But I think Michael Keaton's the most sympathetic Batman. And he also, you mentioned that one moment where he smashes the vase. I find that scene hilarious.
It's funny, but it feels like it just comes out of nowhere.
He turns into like a cartoon character for like a brief second, Yeah. He had his lights out. You want to get nuts? Come on. Let's get nuts. Like I said, he brings out his inner Beetlejuice in that scene. I'm going to make sure not to say that name a third time. He doesn't come across as goofy while he's Batman.
Yeah.
Like Val Kilmer and George Clooney. Because you could easily look really stupid running around like that. But
yeah,
they did a good job making Michael Keaton look like he belonged in that suit. Number one is Christian Bale. I think, again, he has an unfair disadvantage, an unfair advantage in that
He's the most fleshed out.
he's more fleshed out. He's in 3 movies, and they're all longer, and he does a good job too of like having that distinction between Bruce Wayne and Batman. You know, like they feel like different characters. You know,
Yeah.
and he has moments where he actually is threatening too, you know, because
Yeah.
he has to be threatening, you know, if he has to fight these villains, you know. And that also helps. He had really good villains to go against too, you know.
Yeah.
I also just kind of like the whole Howard Hughes dynamic they had.
Yeah. Whenever
his
he's
portrayal.
playing Bruce Wayne, especially in the first 2 movies, it's just fun to watch.
He probably had the best, like, he probably was in the best physical condition too.
Yeah.
Of the 4, he like actually looks like he, you know, could be doing all this, you know, because I like Michael Keaton as an actor, but he doesn't exactly look like, you know, he just goes around beating up criminals at night.
Yeah.
And neither is George Clooney, which maybe it's just because George Clooney was, but anyway, we're not going to talk about that. Trivia. We can get to the trivia. The reviews for the movie were mostly pretty good at the time, you know, although I have noticed this one has fallen out of favor a little bit after some of the hype died down.
Yeah.
I was wondering when we did this podcast whether you would just rip it to shreds or if you would really like it, so I'm kind of relieved that, you know, we liked it, you know. I was also worried that I would watch it and just be like, oh my god, this is, but I liked it. One person who didn't like it
Oh no.
is Rex Reed, who, again, to remind you who that is, he called people who liked Batman Begins morons.
Yeah.
Although he did like The Dark Knight, he did not like Dark Knight Rises. And his review, he said, speaking lines they cannot possibly understand, not one actor makes any attempt to be believable.
Wow.
So manufactured and synthetic that they eventually lose all sense of reality, like their reconstituted orange juice and processed cheese. He gave it 1 star out of 4. Ouch. Okay, a person who did like it, though, is Roger Ebert.
Okay.
He gave it 3 out of 4 stars, saying, the film begins slowly with a murky plot and too many new characters, but builds to a sensational climax, which I think is a pretty fair assessment. You know, that's about what I think of it. Now, what do you want to guess Leonard Maltin gave this?
Oh, knowing Leonard, it's going to be a 1 or a 2.
What's your guess?
I'm going to go with 2.
Surprisingly, Leonard Maltin liked this one.
Oh, really?
He gave it 3 out of 4 stars.
Oh, so it's tied with Batman Forever.
It's up to Batman Forever standards, according to this guy.
What did Dark Knight get again?
2.
Well, I don't even know what to say.
I might read it out at some point, but I actually made a list of movies he thought were worse than Batman Forever, and movies he thought were as good as Batman Forever, and then movies he thought were better than Batman Forever. But it's too long, and we don't have time.
Yeah.
But at some point, I might pull that out just
to torment me further with this man's existence.
But anyway, he gave it 3 out of 4 stars, you know, same as that movie, which will not be named, and said, still a bit self-serious, but roundly entertaining with a satisfying finale.
Yeah.
Fair enough, you know.
Yeah. One piece of trivia that I do have to add to this. Anne Hathaway had been cast as Black Cat in the Amazing Spider-Man back when it was still going to be Spider-Man 4 by Sam Raimi.
Which is basically Marvel's version of Catwoman.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is interesting. And also, Anne Hathaway apparently used Hedy Lamarr as inspiration for her performance, since the character of Catwoman was based on the famous actress.
Huh.
Not to be confused with the Blazing Saddles character, Headley. Tom Hardy based his performance a bit on boxer Bartley Gorman, and this is where his voice comes from, apparently.
Huh.
This was a very unusual voice for him to choose, but it makes sense. You know, Bane is kind of a boxer.
Yeah.
Except he snaps people's necks and tries to blow up entire cities with nukes, but okay. And he was also based a bit off of Darth Vader.
I could see that a little bit.
With the mask and, like, the breathing and stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
You think the Force is your ally. Writer David Goyer left pre-production of this movie to work on, Man of Steel.
Ooh! That's a winning choice right there.
Some people apparently noted an influence that this movie got from the French Revolution, especially its depiction in A Tale of Two Cities. So I guess that means Bane is Robespierre. Christopher Nolan mentioned he was considering using a mixture of CGI and deleted scenes from The Dark Knight to have the Joker appear briefly. He ultimately decided it was disrespectful to Heath Ledger, so the movie doesn't mention the Joker at all.
I have a feeling like if it did come out back then, it definitely would not be well received. But I feel like if that were like to be released now, or people were looking back on it, it probably would be looked upon a little bit more favorably.
Tom Hardy, standing at 5'9", had to wear 3-inch lifts to make his character Bane appear as tall or taller than co-stars Christian Bale, Morgan Freeman, and Sir Michael Caine.
It's a sad moment in time when you're shorter than Alfred.
While doing promotional interviews for this movie, Tom Hardy stated that the most difficult parts of the movie to shoot were the fight scenes.
Yeah?
Not because of the physicality of them, but because he was such a huge Batman fan growing up that he said it felt like I was beating up my childhood hero. However, he also said that despite the worship of the character, the moment Christopher Nolan yelled, "Action!" Hardy just started throwing punches as hard as he could. Which, that's another thing that's impressive, you know. He has to, like, convince people that he doesn't like Batman, that he wants to kill him, and
yeah,
he did, you know. He's a convincing villain. There you go. Anne Hathaway has said that she desperately coveted the role of Catwoman and was a complete nervous wreck after her audition. The first time her agent phoned her after her screen test, he said he had good news and asked if Hathaway was sitting down. Hathaway immediately screamed, "I'm Catwoman," and ran around the room in a frenzy. Unfortunately, her agent had to calm Hathaway down. He had called to let her know that she'd been invited to host the Academy Awards. If that's the award ceremony I'm thinking of, I think that's considered one of the worst Academy Award ceremonies of all time. Yeah, I think that's the one. The 2011 Oscars. Hathaway has said she was so shocked she went numb at the offer. Fortunately, shortly thereafter, her agent phoned again to let her know that she had been offered the part of Catwoman as well. Alternate casting choices for Catwoman.
Ooh, okay.
Included Natalie Portman. What do you think of that choice?
I'm not sure. Seeing Natalie Portman in Star Wars and in Thor hasn't really convinced me.
I mean, I think she could have done an okay job, but it's
just,
it depends, you know. Gemma Arterton, who she played Agent Strawberry Fields in Quantum of Solace. The one that gets killed and covered in oil.
Oh, okay.
Nah, I don't know. Blake Lively, who gave some of the worst narration I've ever heard in the movie Savages. That has a line that goes, "I have orgasms, he has war orgasms." Such a terrible movie, terrible line. But I don't know. I mean, I haven't really seen her in much, to be honest. Olivia Wilde, who already wore a Catwoman-like costume in Tron Legacy. Emily Blunt, Jessica Biel, Eva Green. She was Vesper in Casino Royale. So quite a few
Bond girls, yeah.
Bond girls, yeah. Kate Mara, Keira Knightley. Oh, that's an interesting choice.
Huh.
And Lady Gaga.
Huh. That would have been a much different Catwoman.
Other actors considered for the part of Blake included Leonardo DiCaprio.
Okay. That's 3 for 3 of Leonardo DiCaprio not getting into the Batman trilogy.
Ryan Gosling.
Yeah. Blake is an insignificant enough character that I don't know if changing the actor would have changed much.
It might have made the monologue about them both being orphans, it might have made that hit a little bit harder emotionally, but yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit easier to care about a character when it's Leonardo DiCaprio.
True.
To be fair. Oh gosh. Actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf.
Okay, why didn't we get Shia LaBeouf? That's totally who we should have gotten for this.
That would have been terrible. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's why I want
it. Besides, he's a cannibal. I mean,
yeah.
I might have left somebody out, but Mark Ruffalo was another choice considered for Blake, which he was also considered for Harvey Dent, which is interesting. But
I feel like for Blake, on top of that, you want someone a bit young to play Blake. I feel
true. Yeah,
someone that can pick up the Batman mantle.
These guys were all younger at the time, to be fair.
True.
But yeah, that was Dark Knight Rises, which
enjoyable. It had flaws, but enjoyable.
Yeah, I doubt it's anywhere near as good as what we're doing next, which is...
Oh, let me get the name pulled up. Super Mario Bros. Peach Hime Kyushutsu Dai Sakusen. I am fluent.
I feel bad for our Japanese listeners. I don't know what the fuck to expect from that, but...
It should be an interesting one-off.
It'll be an interesting experience, hopefully. But yeah, so until then, play the Andy Griffith clip. Yeah.
Good night, you stupid idiot. Good night, you miserable slob.